For all those who have just joined us now on time, warm welcome to you. We are just giving a few more minutes for people to join, and we should be able to make a start around 5 minutes past 2. Until then, please, grab yourself a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, whatever your taste is, and be ready to join with us in 5 minutes' time. So I can see the attendees count is on the rise. So we'll give a few more minutes for people who are joining us now and who are yet to join us in the next few minutes. For those who have just joined us, we are waiting for a few more minutes for more participants to join. We'll make a start around 5 minutes past 2. Right, the attendees count is increasing thick and fast, so we'll just wait for a couple of more minutes to make a start. Until then, a warm welcome to all of you who have joined, and please bear with us for another minute. Fantastic. I think we have hit the sweet spot in terms of the attendees count. So a warm welcome to all of you who have joined us for yet another webinar on a topic which is of many of our interest, which is AI, and especially AI in testing. So today specifically, we are going to look at the use of data to master AI testing, and how do we get from a position of chaos and confusion to clarity using data. We all understand data being the lifeline or the bloodline for AI/ML models, and the ensuring that the sufficiency of data, the availability of data, right, and in fact, the right kind of environment and infrastructure to make data as a key enabler for getting the right outputs from AI is very crucial. So in today's webinar, we will be exploring more about how data is playing a key role in the AI/ML models, and how do we control data both as an input and as an output, basically, to get to what we want from these AI/ML models, and how do we leverage it in the world of testing, especially. So with that context and background, we are I'm very happy to introduce to you the two speakers for this webinar. Uh, Gaurav Tiwari, he is the Director of Engineering at Groww, a seasoned technologist and testing professional. I'm going to welcome Gaurav. I'm very happy to have you in the webinar.
Thanks, Aravind. Thanks for calling here.
And I have Aditya, who's the Director of Engineering at Qapitol. Again, a hands-on technologist, very close to the latest trends in the software testing world. And again, I'm very happy and privileged to have you here, Aditya. Welcome on board.
Hello everyone, thank you Arvind. Happy to be here.
Perfect. So we'll make a start first by looking at AI in testing, or rather AI use cases, basically. Um, Gaurav, you're from the fintech space, and then you represent one of the fastest growing fintech organizations in the country. Would like to start with you on what are the typical use cases that you see, where AI is taking the center stage, or playing a very crucial role in your industry.
Aravind, there are a lot of exciting things happening on this field, right? And regardless of whether it is fintech or different organizations and different, like one of the key initiative which I say is a fraud detection and prevention, right?
Mm,
Like there are a lot of exercise. There are a lot of things going on in this. How with the help of AI ML models with machine learning algorithms such as supervised and unsupervised learning are used to detect the usual pattern and anomalies in the transaction that may indicate fraud.
mm,
So that's one of the thing. And then the credit risk scoring and risk assessment, right? There are a lot of organizations are using
mm,
this AI ML mechanism so that techniques so that it can help them to get right set of customers, like predictive modeling, natural language processing, and alternative data analysis are employed to evaluate credit worthiness of and related risk for them, right? And one of this
perfect.
is automated like help and support. There are a lot of energy going on, like companies are using chatbots which are powered by AI, which use visual assistant powered by NLP, and machine learning provides instant customer support and handling routine inquiries. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in
So
fact, very interesting to hear these use cases, Gaurav. I remember reading through one of the recent surveys
hmm,
conducted by Accenture. As early as probably January, February 2024,
yeah.
and amongst all the industries where AI could actually have, I mean, it's already having a significant impact, but they wanted to really measure, which are the industries that are most influenced by AI.
Hmm,
And it turned out that banking and fintech is number one in the list, with almost 22 to 30% productivity being achieved immediately with the help of AI and Gen AI. While there are other sectors like manufacturing, retail, etc., which were in that list. I
right.
think banking kind of topped the chart. So no wonder with the use cases that you have just listed. I think the opportunities for AI and Gen AI as well in this space of banking and fintech is really immense, and it is quite entertaining as well to see what else is in store. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Gaurav. Really helpful. Aditya, from obviously you're a
Yes.
person from very diverse background. Not just fintech, but you've worked in e-commerce and so many other areas.
Yes.
Would you like to call out some of the use cases that you see of AI, ML, and that are probably more impactful for you, or something that really gave you a wow factor?
Yeah, I think the immediate, just to expand on just what both Gaurav and yourself have sought, from an AI perspective, I think it's not just a fintech also, and I think healthcare is also something I think is gives a sort of an immediate impact over there, and in certain use cases, like in terms of covering the most number of tests, like you have your edge test cases which do not get typically covered. Maybe the data is not yet available for those cases as yet, or not yet seen by the your AI ML models itself. So that is where immediately there is going to be an immediate impact, in terms of using this data, or coming up with new data, which you call it as an augmented data set, typically we call it, and also generate your synthetic data, which would sort of help you increasing your coverage. So irrespective whether you are on healthcare, fintech, banking, whatever, essentially you are going to get an immediate impact. I think 30-40% is something which we see you are going to quickly able to reach.
Fantastic. I think probably you hit the nerve just there, by saying how data is basically crucial for AI. So while we all understand that, what goes in is essentially what comes out as well. So the quality of input data for either
Yes.
training or for testing and validating the model, is as important as the outputs or insights that we'll get out of it. um, it is not coming to us without any challenges, right? So there are a lot of challenges that currently are present, especially if I look at in an enterprise organization, right? Enterprise setup, there are at least tens and hundreds of different applications that hold different data, right? They're all masters for certain kind of data attributes, right? The entire task of organizing the data, collecting it in one place, organizing it, and then refining it and getting it ready to be fed into as training data sets or test sets for various AML models, then to get decisions and actionable insights. That itself seems to be like a big challenge, right? So from that perspective, if we could delve a little bit more on the typical challenges that we face in testing AI/ML, especially with respect to data, that would be, I think, good for everybody who is present here. So to start with, Gaurav, if I could ask you to kind of highlight key challenges, the typical challenges that you see in testing AI/ML, especially with respect to the data and the models themselves, that will be of a great help.
Yeah, as you rightly said, anything which comes new has two sides of it. One is there are a lot of positive things going on, and then there are a lot of challenges it brings to the system. Right, a few of the challenges which I think with AI models present is a data quality and pre-processing. Right, challenge is poor data can lead to inaccurate models. So in that, like in a sentiment analysis model, if you see, if the training data contains numerous typographical errors, slang, or irrelevant content, the model may struggle to accurately classify the sentiments, what sentiment it comes under. So one of the this challenges there. And then, like, for that, what is required is a data cleaning. There should be a process and how data cleaning can happen so that you can remove all these parts as a challenge. That data imbalance is one part. The imbalanced data can cause you a biased model, right? We
Hmm.
can just which can poorly perform in your minority cases. I see a lot of challenge in security part also. Like AI system can be vulnerable to a adversarial attack with malicious input because AI models with a lot of PI and personal data comes into picture and it can create a lot of things. So for that solution, we implement robust security measures, right, including a lot of training, anomaly detection, and all these things. And how human AI interaction can help on those front. One of the things is because AI, then there are human. If your app user of your product is human, right? So you need a human there's a right balance between human and AI so that you can get all these. good things into it. And similarly, there are a lot of challenges are, but I hope the kind of energy is going on, people will take care of it and things will go on. Like test automation, I can say there's a lot of challenges as well, because the automation tests for AI system can be challenging due to need of sophisticated test scenarios and the dynamic nature of AI models. And for that, some of the solution we can do is the self-healing of automation test cases. How can it happen, right? Because this AI models, when you write automated test cases, it should heal themselves, because and they can evolve over it, because the product will evolve, use cases will be evolving. So how these things can happen over a period of time.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. Thanks, Gaurav. Aditya, would you like to add anything more to the typical challenges we encounter in testing AI/ML, and how data plays a crucial role there?
Yeah. So just to add on top of it, the bias, hallucinations, so on and so forth, from even the data perspective also as well. So you typically have problems in terms of having missing data, or the repeated data set, or you have a variability or accuracy estimation sort of missing, to let you know what the model is capable of or not capable of, in terms of what is its ability to uh, service your application, so on and so forth. There is no sort of an oracle, if I may say so, in terms
Mm.
of determining the correctness, overall correctness of your AML. I think that is what sort of brings a challenge. I know things are changing every day. You get new techniques being evolved, and new sort of SOPs which are being created. But as of right now, yes, there is no sort of a predefined. Yes, there are certain milestones or goalposts which you can either create yourself and then set those up, and then once you have them, you can sort of go and then have some of these techniques which can be introduced as part of your AI/ML pipelines. Something along the lines of maybe adding some fuzz testing, and your adversarial testing, so on and so forth. Create some synthetic data, uh, so on and so forth. So these are some of the things, and which you can sort of address these sort of problems in terms of overall accuracy, correctness, validation, along with your biases, hallucination, and the privacy things.
Yeah, thanks, Aditya, for that. While we were on the topic, there are a couple of questions. So I'll probably read out the first question from Amit Kumar. He is asking, how will the AI impact test automation and CI/CD pipelines? That's the question. And Amit, probably that's a question which is in the minds of many other testers as well, who are present here and probably who wanted to be here but couldn't. I mean, while I ask our speakers to take this question, a quick call out to all the participants here. If you would like to see how AI has actually impacted test automation and how it is actually helping in, not only generating the tests but also in executing the tests and getting actionable insights out of it, please register yourself with your official email ID for a demo and a walkthrough of our AI-enabled unified test automation framework. Right. So many of the topics that we are going to discuss now in this webinar will actually be available to really see right in action basically. And with that call out, I would like probably Aditya to comment on this question on how will the AI impact test automation and the CI/CD pipelines.
So, if I have sort of understood the question correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, Aravind. So, the impact of test automation, AI
How
impact
AI
on
will
test
impact test
automation, right?
automation. How AI is going to impact test automation, right? So we
Yes.
can, for example, talk
Yeah.
about either web automation or a mobile or API, whatever be it, right? So how AI is going to
Yeah.
impact in your view. And the second part of the question was how it is also going to impact, as in how AI
Yes.
is going to impact CI/CD pipelines as well is what the question
Yeah,
is.
I think this sort of covers a whole lot of things actually. So both from your CI/CD perspective and both from automation standpoint. So
Hmm.
AI, we can have AI introduced both in automation itself, both while your application and the test might be based on an AI/ML system, or it just sort of uses your AI/ML system. So the AI can be sort of introduced right from your unit testing itself. Let's say you're starting off creating your unit test for your application, be it an AML application or a non AML application itself, right? So you can start off with writing your unit test based on the code which the developer has basically written it, that is based upon the scenarios or the code which is there. That is one. The second thing, as we spoke about, I think the data is something which we are currently on the topic for today. The data is something which we can look at in terms of creating your data sets. Maybe you're starting it from the scratch, or you have already a predefined data set from your production and you want to leverage that data and sort of increase your test coverage. That is one, right? And then let's say you already have a set of test suites, and then you want to sort of get to know your analysis in terms of get the analytics on what is your top sort of tests which are failing continuously or in your regression suite on your daily runs, get the triaging of those bugs, so on and so forth, right? And any sort of, let's say, fault tolerances or fault you see in your application, right? So these are the things which you can sort of use the AI to help you enable uh, and get the analytics out of it. And both from a CI/CD point of view also as well, you can sort of get this feedback lines onto the CI/CD pipeline and make sure your CI/CD pipeline basically continuously runs based on the evaluations or the feedback which you get from the analysis which you get from the AI test suites.
Okay, fantastic. I think Amit Kumar is also asking a follow up to that question he just said, and then he says, "I just heard about self healing code using AI. How is this possible to achieve self healing, and how do we correct the failed test cases?"
Yes.
So, yeah, would you be able to give an instance where self healing is happening? Especially in UI testing, where we see that elements might have changed or the IDs might have changed.
Absolutely. I think there is something which sort of AI sort of helps out a lot actually in terms of reducing the overall maintenance of your test suites. So let's say you have your application where you're sort of having an A to B deployment of your application, and you have a test suite which has been prepared for the initial version of your application, and a baseline has been created, right? And now let's say your application, a widget has been moved from one position to the other position, so on and so forth, right? Now your tests start to fail. Now typically when AI wasn't there, you would go in, get to the place where the code exists, and then you sort of based upon the application how it looks like, you're going to go and change it. But with the help of AI, so you can actually ensure that your tests are basically not failing by letting the AI model know what was the reason of that failure. Now, how does that know? It is based upon your, the deployment of your application A, where it sort of knows the context of what the application will sort of look like. And based upon that, it is going to give you a set of probable, solutions for it. Go there and sort of heal it itself during the runtime. So what this sort of helps out is your execution of your test suites are not are not failing and are continuously in running in your CI/CD pipelines. So this sort of ensures also in saving your usage of your CI/CD pipelines. Let's say you are on AWS or on your Azure, where you sort of save your costs also as well. So that will sort of help you in enabling using your self-healing. So you might not know the direct impact, but you have your beneficiaries along the sidelines also as well in terms of the cost and the time it takes for it to, let's say, rerun the whole suite again just because there is a change in from A to B.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, So, Gaurav, would you like to add anything more to this? In terms of how AI could basically help. In terms of self healing, and how it has been beneficial, basically. In your experience.
So one thing is data ingestion, right? When I say for any machine learning for test automation, there is a lot of data ingestion need to come, right? Whatever customers are trying how that ingestion can happen, and I'm like there are a lot of tools which are coming for writing AI driven writing unit test cases, right? But that has challenges, right? It requires a lot of learning, right? Because if there is a mechanism to giving a score of automation script, right? Because any AI tool can generate the unit test case, but what the effectiveness of that?
Correct.
That gives another vertical, right? Because you can write unit test cases and your coverage might be very good, 100%, but effectiveness is something which is missing. And that's why what I said is a human and AI, we have to find a balance, how it can help to get into it. That's my personal view always. Key that is missing part in my sense. If what I think is there are a lot of positive energies going on in the industry and things are going well, but coverage will be good. But how can you say, how will give the confidence to the people ki, yeah, things are really
Mm.
impacting a lot? So that is score, I'm not saying in the percentage 100% coverage is here there, but
Right.
what the use case that has been covered, because you
Exactly.
can increase your coverage with minimal line of code.
Correct.
So for that, and self healing is something which I can, as I said, like for UI automation, we can say if the UI keeps on changing, because all these UI is bound to change. Right? And so how can the AI can predict the changes, right? With the giving, say you are giving your say design doc, so your it should predict to your what is going to change, so that healing can be upfront rather than false alarm comes and then self healing happens. So we are to move faster, because the speed is one thing which I think is the key differentiation in coming days. How quickly you ship with best quality.
Hmm. Yeah, thanks, Gaurav and Aditya, for that. I'm hoping
Mm.
that that quite comprehensively answers the questions that Amit had raised. Um,
Mm.
there was another question from Vinay Kumar. So, could you provide insight into a specific use case being addressed at your organization? Specifically, what problem was identified, why AI was introduced, and which AI/ML tools were employed? This information will help us relate to or explore similar solutions for our use case. So, Vinay, I think from the discussions that we just had, where Aditya and Gaurav were explaining, right, how AI is basically getting used in the fintech space, right? So those are real use cases where we see, right, where AI is. We saw that the KYC as a process, like in enrollment to or in registration with any financial services, KYC is a mandatory process. We saw in the past that especially when we were adopting digital at a very fast pace, KYC was becoming a challenge with the kind of data being submitted electronically or digitally, and evaluating them manually was a big task. So AI was used very effectively, basically in making sure that the information or documents that were submitted as part of KYC process are validated by AI. And like Gaurav said, right, even though AI is being proven to be useful, effective, right, we still needed a manual oversight on top of what AI is doing. So in one specific case, in KYC, while AI is doing a great job of identifying the document submitted, validating it, and cross-checking it with various authorities on your Aadhaar or PAN or any other digital format of identification, AI does what it does, and then it basically puts things in a queue for somebody then to actually look at and see, you know, are the positives are correctly identified as positives in terms of matches. Where AI has highlighted that there are discrepancies in the KYC process, then somebody literally goes through the discrepancy queue. So rather than, for example, going through hundreds of applications in a single day, probably AI has helped us in narrowing the scope of review to only those exceptions, right? So AI gives us the exception. Somebody looks into it and says, yes, these are really mismatches in the KYC process. Or if AI has got it wrong, then that goes as a feedback into the AI to make it better, right? So those are specific use cases. And like what Aditya was saying, right, in terms of the IDs for the elements changing, right, and then how AI was specifically used to identify those the changes in the locators, and then self heal it so that the test runs automatically without getting stopped. Now these are many use cases that really pushed us towards adopting AI and then see the benefit of it. One other area that Aditya was mentioning as well was that we tend to spend a lot of time as testing professionals in looking at what went wrong and trying to do a root cause analysis, right? So that is one other area where we have seen instant first-hand benefits in using AI to help us reduce the amount of time that we spend in error diagnosis and in trying to find out what the possible problems are and the possible solutions could be as well, because AI is able to do that too. Um, so with that, I think we'll go on to the next question, and then we'll get to the discussion topic. Um, there was a question from someone, yeah, from Abhishek here. From a perspective of automation tester who just is writing code using Selenium, where do we start on this AI journey? I think probably there are many such professionals, who would want to know where exactly is the starting point, because this is everywhere. Right? So, where do I start, and what is the typical path I should follow to, get follow in the path of AI, right, in testing? Gaurav, do you want to share your initial thoughts on, where would what would be your advice for someone who wants to start on the AI in testing? Where do they look at?
I always think don't restrict yourself related to automation only, like a Selenium automation or any automation will thing. Just try to know what problem you are going to solve, and maybe because there are a lot of AI, it will ease your work, right? With learning tool, it's not a problem. You can Google it and you'll get a lot of tutorials you can look into it. But my only thing which I say to the people who are starting the automation is focus on what the outcome you want to achieve, and rest everything is secondary. So learning, say, you want to improve the speed of deliverables. For that, automation is required, and for that, see what need to be automated. Right? So if it is UI is one thing, it's ever changing your UI. So then maybe UI automation is not right tool, or maybe there you need a AI to learn. And for that, I think whatever framework you are showing, it may be a great help.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
perfect.
think Gaurav has hit the nail on the head, I would say. And just to add, expand on it, I think to start about, I think you can easily start about, it's just my personal opinion, you can just easily start again with AI itself.
Right.
Because AI is absolutely, especially the Gen AI tools are an excellent learning resources, absolutely. I think it beats even your normal, regular, your old sort of tools which are there. So absolutely, you can start off with your Chat GPT, so on and so forth itself to start off your testing journey, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, probably for those who are used to looking at the older version of the Windows, there used to be a small kind of graphic, like an assistant, like a clip, right, that used to kind of help us. Nowadays we see that there is this AI, Gen AI becoming like a little helper, a co-worker, right? So which can really guide us when we are at a crossroads and not sure where exactly we are going to proceed. So I think would be good to for me to kind of make this announcement here. So if you are interested in API testing, especially, right, API test automation, and if you want to see an AI coworker, how an AI coworker could help you in automating the API tests end to end. When I say end to end, you give the API specifications like a Swagger spec or the contract information, or if you have any other information appear your user story, and then if you want to see how tests are generated, what different tests are generated in for that API, including happy path, edge cases, negative scenarios, and then also see how automatic test scripts are generated and executed. And probably now is a time for you to request for a demo as well. Again, we can see these things happen in action, where we would be able to ingest the available information in terms of API contracts or even execution logs for that matter, user stories, etc. See how that is translating into test cases and test repositories, and then from there how automated test scripts are generated, and then how they are executed along with the results and other things, right? So this, especially in the API testing world, AI's influence has been phenomenal, and and the pace at which it is doing as well is much bigger and much greater than what is happening on the UI front. When I say UI, as in web and mobile as well, right? So please register with your official email ID for a demo on the API test automation, and how the AI coworker in API test automation can help. With that, we'll get on to the discussion topic, right? So um, how we talked about the quality of data, and I saw that there is also a question from Ashish Gupta on how are you testing the AIML model itself. We have many tools to test web APIs, but the basic problem now is how to test AIML packages. Are you using any tools for testing these packages? Now, in fact, a good question that you have asked, Ashish, which we were going to discuss now, and it is leading us nicely to the next part of this conversation. Right now, when we looked at testing AIML, we saw, in the beginning of the webinar, we said how data is going to be crucial, right? So the data that is used, first of all, to train the AIML model, right? There has to be, it has to be fair, in the sense, it has to be comprehensive, it needs to be accurate, it needs to be representative, right? So it has to satisfy a checklist of things, for the data training data set to be ready for the AIML model to train. Now, in spite of training the AIML model with various training data sets, right, it can still happen that when the AIML model works with real life data, it may not give us the right set of responses, right? We have the typical problems of underfitting or overfitting, as you will know, right? Where the model is basically trying to kind of, drift, or, go towards, undesired outcomes because of, for example, bias in the data that we had put in, or because of non significant data elements clouding the judgment of an AIML model, right? So one of the key things for us to test the AIML model itself will be the data, right? How are you going to first get a training data set correctly identified and built, and then how we are going to create the test data set as well to validate the models once it has been trained effectively, right? And as we said, there are challenges in training the AIML model itself with respect to the biases that it can gather over a period of time, or the hallucinations it can gather over a period of time. And there are specific techniques that we have, using the data to validate or overcome those challenges as well. um, you're also asking for any specific tools for testing these packages, right? So Aditya, would you like to take this question on, what tools are available to test AI ML model itself, or anything that you can offer on that side?
Absolutely, Arvind. So, for the ML model, as you said, the data is the most important thing, both from an input standpoint and from an output, where you want to sort of validate your output also as well, right? So, in terms of your inputs, typically, let's say you already have already an application, sort of a production data which is you already present, right? You would want to sort of generate the data, or extend or augment your data, which we spoke about previously, or you would want to create something right from the scratch. So we have some certain tools which are available where you can create this synthetic data, which will sort of help you out in creating a sort of a training set, so training data set. So you can sort of have those training data set and have a data set for evaluation, kept hold on, so that you could validate it at a later point of time, so that you can check your accuracy, so on and so forth, for the output of those LLMs, right? So I think from a tooling perspective, right from an open source, I think there is something called as CTGAN, which sort of helps you out in creating your data sets based upon tables, which you can ingest it into your databases, so that you can have them continuously create your synthetic data, right? You can also have you're adding noise to your data so that it will help you sort of check for your privacy and security also, right? Where we are ensuring whether the data is not sort of disclosed, or is not, the sensitive information is not part of your the output which you see, right? And in terms of, there are some paid synthetic tools also as well, like I think Tonic, Grittle, you have these paid tools which are there. I think there are a lot of tools actually where you have an integration with your data lakes also as well. So you have your data lakes where you can integrate these and then have them as part of your CI/CD tool, where you continuously are, feeding your synthetic data, right? So the advantages of having your synthetic data is, let's say you have a limited amount of production data, and based upon your production data, you can use that as your, you could say in your old terminology, like a schema, you could say that. So you can take that as a schema, and based upon that you can augment or add your data if you already have your pre-production data. So if you do not have that, let's say you are still at the stage where it is not deployed, right? So based upon, let's say you might have your schemas, basic API schemas, so on and so forth. Using that, it will sort of generate a few sets of data, and that sets of data you can as it as your starting point. So based upon that, once you have that starting point, you can split it into your basic training data set and your test data set, right? Or if you want to sort of have in a secondary layer, create, multiple subsets of it, you can have a training set which has a multiple subsets of it, and use it for your training, and then also have another multiple subsets which can use it for testing, right? And then you can have a data set also where you are continuously repeatedly sort of using it, so to check for your accuracy and the variability of the model, right? So, as we spoke about, there can also be a chance of overfitting of the model also as well, right? So in that case, you sort of hold out some data, like you're not going to use it as part of your training, and then you sort of hold it so that you can validate at a later point of time. And then where typically some applications where you have data which is more along the lines of having time sensitive, like a time series data, right? Where you would want to ensure that that data is not used to sort of predict your past information or the past events, you could say. So these are the some of the things which how you can sort of validate your models. And in terms of generating your test suites or so on and so forth to evaluate your outputs of your LLMs, I think something which has gaining a good amount of traction is dpval is, I think, one library which is sort of having a good amount of traction in that case, where you can evaluate on your RAG applications, so on and so forth. And there are a couple of more also as well, smaller ones. But yes, these are some of the, like, few open source and few paid ones which are available from a tooling perspective. But the techniques would always remain the same, where you ensure you have your unit tests in place, your integration tests in place, so on and so forth. Those are, in fact, needs to be set in stone, irrespective whether you are testing your AML application or a regular application also as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Aditya, for that. Hope that kind of answers the questions around what tools are available basically to test the AI models itself, right? And then I vividly remember, this was probably in 2004, 20 years ago, right? So an MIT professor basically demonstrated how an AI system, right? Because I think at that time most of the mail servers, in order to filter the spam emails, right, based on certain presence of certain words, right? It can be a profanity, or it can be some banned words, right? So uh, an intelligent system was built basically to filter the spam email so that it doesn't reach to the recipients. And this professor basically used another intelligence system, an AI system, to learn very quickly what are all the words that are used by the spam filter, and then trick that spam filter to bypass it and then send those spam mails into the mailbox, right? So basically it takes fire to fight fire, right? And we are seeing that in the industry today, a lot of AI tools are being used to test the AI tools, right? So there is a counterbalancing happening there, right? While on one end, we are building AI tools to deliver us a lot of capabilities. On the other end, there is a proliferation of AI tools to basically make sure that the others is supposed to do what it is expected to do, right? So that is eventually where we are heading towards, basically, right? So if you would like to know more about what are these things that are happening today, please uh, enroll for a report, an industry report that we have prepared for this topic, which is data hacks to mastering AI in testing. And you will find very interesting things about PyTorch and TensorFlow that are currently the open source deep learning algorithms that are used now, right? To basically create the desired outcomes using AI/ML, but also to validate them as well, right? So, but as I said, it's an ever evolving, ever fascinating field where things are happening at pace, which keeps us kind of second guessing on what is to come next, right? I think on that note, we'll probably go to the next section of this discussion, uh, which again is related to one of the questions that was asked by Prasanna in the beginning. While I read that question through, I deliberately did not read that question out because I know we will be coming to this topic at some point in time. So, Prasanna, if you are still there, your patience is being rewarded because we are going to discuss that particular question in depth now. So, Prasanna is asking, since AIML uses data as its input too, does that mean if the data is somewhere in the internet that we are not aware of, the AI will help us by giving all those edge cases which other companies have faced? Or AI would be able to generate newly such data by itself? Can you please elaborate on this? So, Prasanna, we all know that the Gen AI, especially which uses the large language models, right? It is getting trained on the information that is available in public domain, right? And the information that's available in public domain is so huge and so immense that it is humanly not possible for people to make sense of everything by themselves and then bring that about, right? While the search engines to some extent fulfill that need to scout all this information and bring what is relevant, LLMs have kind of redefined it and taken it to the next level, right? So to answer your question, will AI bring me the information that is available to generate edge cases? It does, as long as that information is in the public domain, right? Now, certain organizations, in fact many organizations, would want to keep the information or data about their business secure and private. They don't want that information to go in the public domain, right? In such cases, how do we make use of that, right? Or if I want to keep my information private and secure, right, will I be able to get the same kind of impact or the same kind of response I would get using an LLM or a Gen AI capability that scouts the public domain information, right? So it is it is very important for us to discuss this topic and see how do we maintain the privacy and security of the data that we currently have, right? Where I can go and make use of the information that is in public domain, and how I can protect or ring fence some information which I don't want to go to public domain. While I'm happy to receive, I don't want my information to go out into the public domain because of the sensitivity of the data, right? So you have asked a very valid question in the beginning of the webinar, but I think probably we are going to discuss that now. So Aditya, would you like to share your thoughts on the privacy and security of data being used in AI, right? And then how
Yes.
an organization can go about protecting it, at the same time making use of the LLMs that are available, that is being trained on the information available in public domain also.
Yeah, sure, Aravind. So I think it comes back again, since the question was asked from the beginning of our webinar. I think Gaurav, when he spoke about from the data perspective, he spoke about some of the pre-processing which is done, right. So it starts off right from there when you are sort of training or creating your data set for training, right. So it starts directly from there where you pick the right data set initially, right. Whatever is currently available. I know there are some data sets, as you spoke, are behind a paywall, or behind a corporate proxy, so on and so forth, which obviously you would companies would not want to share, let's say, something personally identifiable, right? So once you have the data set, the next thing is you sort of do the pre-processing. So the pre-processing means it just means that you are ensuring that something which is identifiable to a particular real person in the world is completely removed from your data set, right? And then that is the first primary thing you sort of do it. Okay. And then the next thing is you sort of decentralize your data. Let's say if you have some data issues, we keep hearing a lot of hacks, so on and so forth. You ensure that your data is not at a single location, but on several different servers. And let's say if there is you have your data which is being continuously used as a feedback, you ensure that the data is being sent using an encrypted channel, essentially, right? So you use some encryption tools you already have, which is presently available from AWS, Azure. uh, they do provide those. Have your access control set in stone. I think that I don't have to sort of say that. Ensure you have those access controls set in place. And at the end of the day, again, it is more along the lines of the ethical usage of whatever data you have on your hands is something. These are some of the most common steps which you will have to basically take it up before you sort of ensuring you have your security in place or ensure your privacy of your data, right? So
Yeah.
once, yeah, sorry.
Sorry,
So
we wanted to say something more, Aditya?
yeah, that's pretty much wanted to let you know.
Right. So, Gaurav, your thoughts or your views on the privacy and security with respect to Gen AI, right? While a lot of confidence is being given to the users, right from the big cloud providers like AWS, Azure, or GCP, right, saying, when you use our LLMs or Gen AI capabilities, and when we tell you that your data is secure, it is absolutely secure, right? But we do see that these confidences don't necessarily translate into actions from the end users as well, because there is always a skepticism, especially in the fintech space or in the banking and financial services area, right, where data privacy is of utmost importance, right? How do you view the privacy and security aspect in Gen AI, and what are your kind of personal views of it, Gaurav?
So this data security is something which every organization is taking to the best of their capabilities, and they keep on. It's ever evolving field, right? How you can, like Aditya said, don't secure your data in one place. Always keep on segregating the data. If anything happens, no trust policy which comes, right? Like network pe hota hai, there is a thing, no trust policy. Don't trust about systems. Keep your
Yeah.
thing as soon as anything happens, just try to cut out from there, right? To minimize the damage always, right? So there are different strategies which can be followed.
Yeah.
So keeping data in different, I think I'm a big fan of that. We should keep on doing that, and people will do. And the focus should be more on the internal sources of the data, right? Because there are a lot of things which goes on outsourced, which are there in the cloud, which is easy to get, but that will not give you much value out of it, right?
Mhm.
And we can just focus on how can the internal data from a lot of sources we have, like data leaks and everything, and keep on. You said few minutes back, to test an AI, there is a AI frameworks are going on, how to test the AI, right? That's how to secure your things. We have to build this parallel systems so that it can be secured always.
Yeah. I think on this topic, Suresh Mahadevan has asked a very valid question as well. Uploading PRDs and API contract, is it not exposing? So, Suresh, so what we are essentially saying is, if you are using a public LLM engine, right, a chat GPT, a public version of it to upload information, a PRD or API contract, it is pretty much exposing it, correct? Now, there are some public APIs that the organization themselves have exposed in their websites. Say, for example, certain organization says, if you want to get information from my organization, these are public APIs that are available. Now, you can call them, I will provide the information, because that is the nature of their business, right? As long as it's a public API available for anybody, it's fine. You can take it. So many banks have started, exposing the API contract for information about their products and services. So rather than you going and reading through their website and trying to find out what are the different fixed deposit products, what are the different savings account, what interest rates, what terms and conditions, they've exposed it as an API for various aggregators and information, if I say, information aggregators to compare it right? So a financial broker could basically use those APIs of various banks, pull all the information about the product, and then create a nice table for somebody, for their customer to say, look, this bank provides this much of interest rate for this particular term on a fixed deposit, right? Now those are all public APIs that can be exposed, is fine. But if you're doing any sensitive work, confidential work, then organizations also use a private network or a private version of the LLMs, basically, that can run within their own secure network, which will basically take the information in, and then it will compare it with what is generally available in the public domain without exposing what is being fed, and then give a response which leverages what is available in public domain plus whatever you have input as your private information. So the insights from such LLMs and the Gen AIs, which are kind of private, it combines the best of both worlds. It gives you an answer which is more appropriate to your organization, but it also leverages what is already available in the public domain. So if you're planning to use it for your confidential projects or sensitive projects, then I would recommend that you go with the enterprise version or private version of the Gen AI capabilities, and not the public ones, because the public one means that as part of using it, the licensing agreement does state that this information will be made available for everyone, no, unless you specifically subscribe to the private version. Any other points or thoughts to add on this particular question from either of you?
Yeah, Aravind. So just to add on whatever you basically said, I think there are tools also available to exactly give you those metrics in based upon the comparison of what locally you have a model which is deployed and it is trained on the sensitive information. You want to just compare it with something which is publicly available, which is sort of real to at least to the organization, right? And then get those metrics based on let you know how much information is being outputted by the LLM. Let's say a personal identification, whether it is spitting out that personal identification or not, or how many times does it spit it out, so on and so forth. So those sort of metrics are available. I think one of the tool is from SDV, if I'm not wrong. They do provide that, where there is a community edition and there is also an enterprise edition. I think the community edition has few features which might help out exactly for that.
Fantastic. Okay. I think we are getting to the business end of this webinar, so I'm going to kind of reserve the last couple of minutes to do a bit of fortune telling, right, or for predicting the future, right? So again, the views can will be purely the personal views of the speakers, but if I were to ask them to wildly imagine, right, on what the future of testing will be with AI, right? And just like as brave as we can be in dreaming, right? I would like to see that bolder version, or the bolder dream, right, of how AI can influence the testing space. So Gaurav, if I can start with you to tell us, where do you see AI taking us in the future of testing?
So the future is really bright. One thing, there are a lot of exciting, like automation testing tool. One thing, the future is automation is something which is going to be a key for it, right? Like the increased use of automated testing tool for end-to-end testing for AI ML models, rather than focusing on UI, API, and everything. We have to come fast. How we can develop the model which can help us in uh, creating all these parts, because AI will take care of all this automation of UI and all these parts. So we should focus on that. CI/CD for AI. There is a huge scope of CI/CD pipelines for continuous testing and deployment for AI models. Example like MLOps framework, like Kubeflows and facilities continuous integration and all these things. It's very much required in coming time. And I'm also thinking of how we are talking to so much of an automation, how this AI can help in. I think we should do a session on the environments, right?
Hmm.
Your automation can only be helpful if your environment is ready for automation, right? How AI can
Correct.
help in building those parts. Right? And here it makes a lot of sense, like how CI/CD can be more effective to give testing environment for the people to perform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gaurav. Very, very insightful. Aditya, from your side, how do you see, AI taking us to the future of testing? Sorry, we are not able to hear you, Aditya, if you're on mute.
Sorry. So just from my perspective, I think AI is changing almost on a daily basis. On a literally every day you see new things which are happening. So it is just to add on whatever Gaurav said, I'm really excited on what new things are going to come up, right? So that is definitely there. From a short term perspective, I do see couple of things. uh, uh, I just want to see how testing could be redefined, or an alternative way could be seen, based upon an alternative to maybe, let's say, Selenium, or some of the tools which we see APM. How could, AI, leverage those, or come up with something alternative to that, so that it is more of along the lines of a process rather than, from an integrity perspective. uh, Not just, I'm just doing a unit testing, a scripting, so on and so forth, but more along the lines of, let's say you have your application and then you want to do it. I know the AI is already there in terms of using agents, but it still needs a lot of work, at least for now, and it's not there yet, at least
Okay.
for now. But I do see in a midterm, yes, definitely that is what excites me a lot.
Fantastic. So it's only a question of when and not
Yes.
if. Yeah, we will all wait for that eventuality to unfold in front of us soon. With that note, I think we have got to the end of the session. So, Gaurav and Aditya, it has been an absolute pleasure discussing these topics, right? As ever, like every day is a school day. We learn new things, right? So, I personally learned quite a few things during our conversation, and I'm hoping that all of our audience would have also picked up a few takeaways from this session that we had. It's been greatly insightful. Thanks to both of you for your time today. Thanks a lot. And for our audience, thanks very much for joining in. So, if you're interested in getting the reports that on the data hacks to mastering AI in testing, or if you would like to have a demo of the unified test automation framework with AI capability, or if you would like to see an AI coworker in API automation, please feel free to register with your official email ID in the comment section, or just drop us a note, and we'll be more than happy to touch base with you and then talk about, or even demonstrate about these things to you, right? So thanks a lot, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks. Thanks, Arvind. Thanks, everyone.